The blood spreads slowly across the concrete, dark red, turning almost black in the thin Harlem afternoon light. It starts as a small, tight pool beneath Mayme Johnson's dress, hidden at first in the folds of the fabric, then creeping outward like it has a mind of its own, like it's searching for something it lost. It snakes along the sidewalk, follows the tilt of the ground, finds the hairline fractures in the cement, and slips into the cracks. From there, it crawls toward the curb, toward yesterday's rainwater that still sits in the gutter in a cloudy grey strip, never fully drying on Lenox Avenue. 4 concrete steps. That's all there are. 4 concrete steps up to Chen's grocery, the kind you don't even notice until someone's body hits them. 4 steps between the sidewalk and the door. 4 steps between being a woman walking with her hand on her belly and being a woman lying on her back on cold cement, bleeding out her future. Mayme's right hand is pressed flat against her stomach, as if she can hold everything inside by force of will. 7 months pregnant, 28 weeks. She knows those numbers the way some people know lottery combinations or scripture verses. Her left hand is braced behind her, planted on the bottom step, the only thing keeping the back of her head from striking the ground. Her elbow shakes. Her fingers curl on the grit. She's not screaming. She's not even really moving. She's just breathing, short, shallow, angry breaths, pulled in through her teeth and pushed out again between clenched jaws. Above her, frozen at the top of those 4 steps, stands Vincent Esposito. 3 seconds. That's how long he stands there with his hands half raised, his eyes wide, his face bleached of color as his brain scrambles to make sense of what his body already knows it did. 3 seconds where the world holds its breath with Mayme. Then something inside him clicks back into place. He lowers his hands. He looks around once. He decides. He walks away. He doesn't run. He doesn't even look hurried. He just puts his hands in his pockets and strolls off like he's any other man on Lenox Avenue on a Friday afternoon who just finished collecting money from scared shopkeepers. Like he didn't just put his hands on a pregnant woman and shove her down 4 concrete steps in broad daylight in front of a grocery store with 6 people inside and a bell on the door that still hasn't stopped ringing from where she hit it on her way down. Mr. Chen is the first one out. He's 63 years old and has been running Chen's grocery on Lenox Avenue for 18 years. 14-hour days, 6 days a week. His life measured in deliveries, invoices, and the weight of boxes on bad knees. His body gave up running years ago. His left knee crunches when he bends. His back complains when he stands too long. But he runs now. He pushes the door open so hard it bangs against the wall, the bells screaming overhead, and he takes the steps in a clumsy jump that nearly puts him on the ground beside her. He drops to his knees. His hands hover over her like he's trying to catch smoke. He doesn't know where to touch, what might make it worse. The blood is already on his hands, slick and warm from where he brushed the concrete. "Mrs. Johnson! Mrs. Johnson, can you hear me?" he asks. Mayme nods barely. Her eyes stay closed. Her face is wet, but she's not crying out. She presses her hand harder into her belly, as if the baby could hear her trying to hold on. "I'm calling an ambulance," Chen says. "Don't move, please don't move." He forces himself to stand, legs trembling, and he runs back into the store. He grabs the phone with fingers that won't stop shaking and dials with the speed of a man who has seen too much in this neighborhood to be surprised by blood, but who has never seen this. The operator answers in the flat, practiced voice of someone far away. "Emergency services?" "I need ambulance," Chen says, breathless. "Pregnant woman fell down steps. She's bleeding. Lenox Avenue, Chen's grocery." "What is the address, sir?" He gives it, the numbers catching on his tongue for a moment, like they don't want to come out. The operator says the ambulance is on its way, and Chen hangs up, but he knows what that promise is worth in Harlem, especially for a black woman. He knows how long sirens take to find their way north when the patient isn't wealthy, isn't white, isn't downtown. He goes back outside. Mayme hasn't moved. Her hand is still clamped to her stomach. Her breathing is the only sound she makes, tight and fast. The blood has spread out from under her, soaking into the concrete, drying at the edges, still wet at the center. Chen takes off his shopkeeper's apron, folds it once with hands that remember careful habits even now, and slides it under her head like a pillow so her skull doesn't rest against the cold, hard ground. She still doesn't open her eyes. She just breathes and holds on. A crowd forms because in Harlem, people always come when something happens. 8 people at first, then 10, then more, standing in a rough semicircle, blocking part of the sidewalk. They're not talking. The usual street noise has faded. There is only the distant hum of traffic, a radio 2 doors down, the soft, desperate rhythm of Mayme's breaths. One woman pushes through the circle, Mrs. Patterson from 2 blocks over. 6 children carried, 5 born, living. She has seen blood like this and knows what it means. She kneels on Mayme's other side without asking permission, without introducing herself. She just takes Mayme's free hand, the one not pressed to her belly, and holds it. "How far along?" she asks quietly. Mayme's lips move, but no sound comes. Mrs. Patterson answers for her later. 32 minutes pass before the ambulance arrives. 32 long minutes in which Mr. Chen never leaves Mayme's side. He kneels there until his knees ache so badly he thinks they might give out, but he doesn't move. He just watches her chest rise and fall and waits for help that should have been here 20 minutes ago. At 3:09 p.m., an ambulance finally turns onto Lenox Avenue. No siren, no sense of urgency. Just a white vehicle rolling up like it's heading to a scheduled appointment instead of a crisis that has already stretched into half an hour. It parks crooked near the curb. 2 white paramedics climb out, unhurried. They open the back, pull out the stretcher, adjust straps, straighten a blanket. Then they walk over. They look down at Mayme. "What happened?" one of them asks, his voice neutral, lined with boredom. "She fell down the steps," Chen answers. "She's pregnant. She's bleeding." The paramedic kneels and checks her pulse, then her blood pressure with cold efficiency. His hands are steady. His face does not change. "How far along?" he asks. 7 months, Mrs. Patterson answers before Chen can speak. 28 weeks. The paramedic glances at his partner. Something silent passes between them. It's just a look, but it makes Chen's stomach drop. They move her to the stretcher, working around her hand that still presses against her belly. They lift her into the ambulance. Chen steps forward, reaching for the door. "I go with her," he says. "Her husband, he needs to know." "Family only," the paramedic says, already closing the door. "I'm sorry, family only." The doors shut. The ambulance pulls away. No siren, just the quiet roll of tires over Lenox Avenue. Chen stands on the sidewalk, staring at the dark stain on the concrete where she lay, the blood that doesn't go with her. Then he turns, goes back inside and reaches for the phone again. "Small's Paradise," he says when the line connects. "I need to speak to Illinois Gordon." Harlem Hospital, 3rd floor, maternity ward. Mayme is behind a curtain in the emergency area, the smell of antiseptic and old fear thick in the air. 2 nurses move around her, and one doctor stands at the side of the bed, Dr. Robert Freeman, black. One of only a handful of black doctors in all of New York City, and one of even fewer who routinely treat black patients. He works 18-hour shifts because there simply aren't enough doctors willing to do what he does. He's examining Mayme when Bumpy Johnson arrives. Bumpy doesn't stop at the front desk. He doesn't ask for directions. He walks through the ward like a man who already knows where his wife is, because he does. Because someone has already told him which floor, which hall, which curtain. Illinois Gordon is waiting outside that curtain, pacing the linoleum like the floor might give way under him. When he sees Bumpy coming down the hall, he straightens. "Boss," Illinois says. Bumpy walks past him without a word and pulls the curtain aside. Dr. Freeman looks up. The nurses step back like they've felt this kind of presence before and know not to stand in its way. Bumpy crosses to the bed. Mayme is lying there, eyes open now but staring at the ceiling tiles like they're all she has left to look at. Silent tears slide from the corners of her eyes into her hair. Her face is set, hard around the edges. She doesn't make a sound. Bumpy takes her hand, the one that's no longer pressed to her belly. She turns her head to look at him, and in that look is every question she hasn't had the strength or breath to say out loud. Dr. Freeman clears his throat quietly. "We can't find a fetal heartbeat," he says, voice low, professional, but with a weight in it. "Mr. Johnson, your wife suffered significant trauma from the fall. The placenta has separated from the uterine wall. We need to deliver the baby, but there is no fetal heartbeat. I'm very sorry." Bumpy's face doesn't change. His jaw doesn't clench. His eyes don't narrow. If anything, he becomes more still, like a statue carved from something darker than stone. "How long for the delivery?" he asks. 3 to 4 hours, Dr. Freeman answers. "It's safer to let labor progress naturally than to rush into surgery, given her condition." "How long has the baby been dead?" Bumpy asks. Dr. Freeman hesitates. "Based on the injuries, likely since shortly after the fall. Perhaps 30 minutes after, maybe less." Bumpy nods once. "She gets her own room," he says. "Private. Best you have." "The maternity ward doesn't have," Dr. Freeman begins. Bumpy reaches for his wallet. He counts out $500, more than most of the ward's patients could dream of, and sets the stack of bills neatly on the metal tray beside the medical instruments. "She gets her own room," Bumpy repeats. Dr. Freeman looks at the money, then at Mayme, then at Bumpy. "Room 314, he says finally. "Third door on the left. I'll have her moved immediately." They move Mayme at 4:47 p.m. Room 314 is small. One bed, one window that looks out over the city, one chair, and a single empty bassinet in the corner. The bassinet waits, white and quiet and expectant, like it hasn't yet heard there will be no baby crying to fill it. Bumpy sits in the chair next to the bed and takes Mayme's hand again. He doesn't speak. He stays there as the afternoon slides into evening, as the light in the window shifts from grey to a darker blue. At 5:15 p.m., her contractions begin. Dr. Freeman checks her every 30 minutes. Labor is slow but steady, like a clock winding down on an event that everybody knows will not end with a celebration. At 7:30 p.m., Illinois appears in the doorway. He doesn't come in. He just stands there until Bumpy looks up. Then Bumpy rises and steps out into the hallway. Illinois hands him a folder. Inside is a life compressed into a few pages. "His name is Vincent Esposito," Illinois says. 28, works for his uncle Marco, Genovese family. He collects protection money from 10 businesses in Lower Harlem. "Where is he now?" Bumpy asks. "We don't know yet," Illinois says. "He went back to his apartment on Mulberry Street after, but he's not there anymore. Probably realized what he did." Willie's watching the apartment. Marcus is talking to people in Little Italy. We'll know where he is by midnight. Bumpy looks back through the small window into room 314. Mayme lies there, face clenched with pain, one hand gripping the rail of the bed hard enough to turn her knuckles white. "What do you want us to do when we find him?" Illinois asks. "Nothing," Bumpy says. "Not yet. I want to be there." Illinois nods. "How's Mrs. Johnson?" "She's in labor," Bumpy says. Illinois' face stays composed, but his eyes shift, soften for a second. "I'm sorry, boss." Bumpy doesn't answer. He goes back into the room and takes his seat by Mayme's bed. At 8:47 p.m., Mayme delivers. Dr. Freeman catches the baby, a boy, fully formed at 28 weeks. Small, but perfect. Tiny fingers, tiny toes, a face that looks impossibly complete for someone who never got a chance to breathe. But he isn't breathing. There is only silence, no cry, no movement. Dr. Freeman cuts the cord. He wraps the baby in a white blanket and places him gently in Mayme's arms. For the first time since the fall, Mayme's expression cracks. She looks down at her son, at his still face. She touches his cheek with one fingertip, then his hands, tracing the shape of them like she's memorizing him before he has to go. "William Marcus," she whispers. "That's your name, William Marcus Johnson." She holds him for 20 minutes. No one tries to take him away before she's ready. When she finally nods, Dr. Freeman lifts the baby, lays him in the bassinet in the corner, and pulls the blanket over him. The bassinet that waited now has a purpose it was never meant for. Mayme turns her face toward the wall. Bumpy stands and walks to the bassinet. He looks down at his son. William Marcus Johnson, born March 14th, 1952, 8:47 p.m. Died March 14th, 1952, sometime around 3:30 p.m., on 4 concrete steps outside Chen's grocery. Bumpy stands there for 5 full minutes, motionless, while the sounds of the hospital, the distant footsteps, the distant voices, fade into nothing. Finally, he reaches down and touches his son's hand with one finger. Cold. He turns back to Mayme. She is still facing the wall, eyes open, staring at paint that has seen too many stories like this. "I don't want him dead," she says quietly. Her voice is flat, steady. Bumpy doesn't answer. "I want him broken," she continues. "I want him to need someone to feed him, dress him, wipe him. I want him to be what he killed, helpless, dependent, suffering. Can you do that?" "Yes," Bumpy says. "I promise." Now Mayme turns to look at him. Her eyes are dry. The tears are gone, replaced by something else, something cold and final and set in stone. "Make him suffer," she says. By midnight, they know everything there is to know about Vincent Esposito. He's 28 years old and still lives with his parents, Tony and Maria, at 247 Mulberry Street, second-floor apartment. He's never lived anywhere else. He works for his uncle, Marco Esposito, a Genovese capo who runs protection, gambling, and loan sharking operations. Vincent, Vinny to the people who know him, is small-time, on a test run, handling a 3-block stretch in Lower Harlem. 10 businesses, $50 a week from each. A starter kit in the family business. The paper trail is clear. Bella Nade Restaurant. Tony's place, the family spot that's been open for 20 years. Esposito Trucking, 12 trucks run by Vinny's older brother. A handful of gambling operations tucked into back rooms and basements. Marco's worth maybe $200,000 total. Enough to feel powerful, not enough to be untouchable. Vinny's routine is predictable. Collections on Friday afternoon, drinks at Gianni's bar on Friday night, Sunday dinner at Marco's house in Queens. Very little imagination, very little caution. Current location? Unknown. In Bumpy's office on 132nd Street, the backroom door is closed. Around the table sit Illinois, Willie Lee, Marcus Cole, and Quick Jackson. The file on Vinny is spread out in front of them like a map of someone else's mistakes. "We have 48 hours, Bumpy says. "After that, the Genovese family will figure out what's happening and move to stop us, so we move fast." "What's the play?" Willie asks. "We take everything," Bumpy says. "The businesses, the money, the reputation, and we take Vinny." "Kill him?" Quick asks. "No," Bumpy says. "Mayme wants him alive. She wants him broken." Marcus, the quietest man in the room and the one who carries the sharpest kind of experience, speaks. "You want him paralyzed?" he asks. "Yes," Bumpy says. "How paralyzed?" Marcus asks. "Completely," Bumpy answers. "Neck down. Can't move, can't feed himself, can't do anything. A baby." Marcus is silent for a moment, eyes distant, remembering something that doesn't live in Harlem. "That's possible," he says slowly, "but it's surgical. You have to break the spine in exactly the right place. C1 vertebra, where the spine meets the skull. Break it clean, you sever the spinal cord. He's paralyzed, but you can't damage the brainstem, that would kill him." "Can you do it?" Bumpy asks. "I've done it once," Marcus says. "Korean War, Chinese prisoner. The officer wanted him alive for questioning but immobile. I used a rifle butt. It worked." "Will you do it?" Bumpy asks. Marcus looks at him. What did he do to Mrs. Johnson? He pushed her down concrete stairs, Bumpy says. She was 7 months pregnant. She lost the baby. Marcus nods once. I'll do it. Vinny is at Marco's house in Queens by then. When word reached Marco about what happened on Lenox Avenue, he didn't yell over the phone. He just told Vinny to come immediately. Bring nothing. Tell no one. Vinny arrived at 11 p.m., pale and shaking. Marco didn't hit him, didn't shout. He sat across the kitchen table, the clock ticking between them. Tell me exactly what happened, Marco said. So Vinny told him about the grocery store, the pregnant woman, the words exchanged, the push, the fall, the blood. He spoke fast, tripping over his own voice. Did you know who she was? Marco asked. No, Vinny said, just some colored. Marco held up his hand sharply. Don't say that word, not to me, not ever again. Uncle Marco, do you know who that woman is? Vinny asked, a tremor in his voice. Yes, Marco said. Mayme Johnson, wife of Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. The blood drained from Vinny's face. You pushed Bumpy Johnson's pregnant wife down the stairs, Marco said. She lost the baby. Vinny opened his mouth, but nothing came out. You know what's going to happen now? Marco continued. Bumpy Johnson is going to destroy us. Not just kill us, destroy us. Our businesses, our money, our reputation. And then he's going to come for you. You can protect me, Vinny said desperately. You're a capo. You have men. I can't protect you from Bumpy Johnson in Harlem, Marco said. Nobody can. And even if I could, I wouldn't. You violated the rules. You hurt a civilian, a pregnant woman. You brought shame on this family. What do I do? Vinny asked. Marco stood, his chair scraping the floor. You pray that when he comes for you, he makes it quick. He paused. But he won't, Marco said, because you killed his son. At 2 a.m., Vinny sits in the guest bedroom, fully dressed, sitting on the edge of the bed. 6 bodyguards are in the house, all armed. He hasn't slept. He just stares at the wallpaper, imagining footsteps outside that never come. At 2:17 a.m., the lights go out, not just in his room, but in the whole house. The bodyguards react instantly, flashlights snapping on, guns drawn, shouting to each other as they move to check windows and doors. At 2:18 a.m., every window shatters at once. Metal canisters arc through the dark and clatter onto hardwood floors. Tear gas floods the air. The bodyguards last maybe 40 seconds, coughing, choking, eyes burning, fumbling their way toward exits they can't see. None of them make it to the door. By 2:20 a.m., the house is quiet, except for the rattling coughs of men on the edge of unconsciousness. At 2:22 a.m., Bumpy's men enter, 4 of them wearing gas masks. They move room to room with practiced efficiency. They find Vinny in the guest bedroom, on the floor, trying and failing to crawl toward the window. He's crying, coughing, his voice breaking on half-formed pleas. Marcus Cole grabs him by the collar and hauls him upright. "Vincent Esposito?" Marcus asks. Vinny nods, eyes streaming. "You're coming with us," Marcus says. They bring him to a warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn. It's abandoned, quiet, no neighbors to hear what happens, no cameras to see. Inside, the vast space is almost empty, except for a single metal chair bolted to the concrete floor under a hanging light. The chair waits like it's been doing this job for years. They sit Vinny in it, secure his wrists to the armrests with zip ties, his ankles to the legs. Then they step back and wait. At 3:15 a.m., Bumpy walks in. He's alone. No entourage, no visible weapon. Just the same grey suit he wore to the hospital, the white shirt beneath it stained with Mayme's blood and a faint trace from the delivery room. He walks up until he is 3 feet away from Vinny and stops. He says nothing. Vinny is sobbing. Snot runs from his nose. His chest heaves. He tries to speak, but his voice refuses to build to anything more than breathy noise. Bumpy waits, hands at his sides, letting the silence press down. Finally, Vinny manages, "Please, please, I'm sorry, I didn't know who she was. I swear I didn't know." Bumpy doesn't answer. "It was an accident," Vinny says. "I didn't mean—" "You pushed her," Bumpy says, his voice low, even. "You put your hands on my pregnant wife and pushed her down concrete stairs. 4 stairs. That's all it took. 4 stairs, and my son is dead." "I'm sorry," Vinny chokes out. "I'm so—" "You're not sorry you did it," Bumpy says. "You're sorry she was my wife and not just some random colored woman you thought you could push around." "No," Vinny says, shaking his head as much as the restraints allow. If she wasn't my wife," Bumpy continues, "if she was just some woman whose name you didn't know, you'd be at Gianni's bar right now, drinking, laughing. This colored woman got in my way, so I moved her. That's what you'd be saying." Vinny can't answer because they both know he's right. Bumpy steps closer. "My wife asked me not to kill you," he says. "Do you know why?" Vinny shakes his head. "Because death is mercy," Bumpy says. "Death is easy. She doesn't want you to have easy. She wants you to suffer. She wants you to feel what she feels, helpless, unable to do anything, dependent on others for everything. So that's what you're going to become. You're going to be what you killed. A baby, unable to move, unable to feed yourself, unable to go to the bathroom without someone else cleaning up after you for the rest of your life." "Please," Vinny whispers. "Please just kill me. Please." "No," Bumpy says. He turns his head slightly. Marcus Cole steps into the light, carrying something wrapped in cloth. He sets it on the floor, then unfolds the cloth to reveal a 3-foot metal bar weighted at one end. He picks it up and tests the weight with a small practice swing. "You've done this before," Bumpy says. It's not a question. "Once," Marcus answers. "Career. It worked." "Show me where you'll hit him," Bumpy says. Marcus walks behind Vinny's chair and touches the back of his neck with 2 fingers. "Here," he says. "C1 vertebra, where the spine meets the skull. Break it clean, the spinal cord severs. Everything below the neck stops working, but the brainstem stays intact. He can breathe, he can swallow, his heart keeps beating, but he can't move anything else. Not his arms, not his legs, not his fingers. Nothing." "Will he be able to speak?" Bumpy asks. "Maybe," Marcus says. "Depends on diaphragm control. His voice will be weak, a whisper, but he'll know. He'll know what happened to him. He'll know every day for the rest of his life." Bumpy looks at Vinny. "Last chance to beg," he says. Vinny is shaking so hard the chair rattles. He tries to wrench his wrists free, but the zip ties hold. His breath comes in panicked gasps. "Please," he says. "I have money. My uncle has money. We'll pay you whatever you want. Please." "I don't want your money," Bumpy says. "I want you broken." He nods to Marcus. Marcus positions himself, measuring distance and angle in his head. He raises the bar. "Don't move," he says calmly. "If you move, I might kill you by accident." Vinny sobs, his entire body tensing in a useless attempt to pull away. Marcus swings. The sound is sharp and final, a crack of metal on bone that echoes through the empty warehouse. For a split second, Vinny screams, a high, choked sound that dies almost instantly. His mouth stays open, his eyes bulge, but no new sound comes. Marcus steps around to the front and watches. Vinny's hands are still strapped to the armrests. He tries to move them, to curl his fingers into fists, to jerk against the restraints. Nothing happens. He looks down at his hands, stares at them as if staring hard enough might make them obey. They don't. He tries to move his legs, to kick, to stand. Nothing. Panic floods his face. His breathing gets faster, shallower. He tries to scream again, but what comes out is a thin whisper. "I can't," he gasps. "I can't move." Marcus kneels, pulls a small penlight from his pocket and shines it into Vinny's eyes. Both pupils respond normally. He taps Vinny's arm. No reaction. He takes a small pocket knife and pricks the skin of Vinny's hand. A drop of blood wells up. Vinny's expression doesn't change. "Can you feel this?" Marcus asks. Vinny stares at the tiny bead of blood on his own skin. "No," he whispers. Marcus touches the side of Vinny's face, then his neck above the break. "This?" he asks. "Yes," Vinny whispers. "I feel that." "The break is clean," Marcus says. "Complete spinal cord severance at C1. He's quadriplegic, permanent. His face works, his voice works, barely, but everything below his neck is gone forever." Bumpy steps closer and looks Vinny in the eye. "Kill me," Vinny whispers. "Please, just kill me." "No," Bumpy says. "You live. You live and you remember. Every day, every hour, every minute, what you did, what it cost you, what it cost your family." "Please," Vinny says again, tears streaming sideways down his face. "You're going to wake up tomorrow in a hospital bed," Bumpy says. "You won't be able to move. You won't be able to feed yourself. Someone else will have to do everything for you, change your clothes, wash you, feed you, wipe you when you soil yourself. You won't even be able to control that anymore." Vinny cries silently. His chest heaves, but he can't even curl in on himself. "And every day for the rest of your life," Bumpy says, "you're going to wish I killed you. But I didn't, because that's what my wife wanted. She wanted you to suffer, so you're going to suffer." He turns to Marcus. "Clean him up," Bumpy says. "Take him to Queen's General. Leave him at the emergency entrance." "Boss," Marcus says, "if we cut him loose, he can't move anyway." "I know," Bumpy says. "Leave him in the chair. Let them find him like this. Let them see what happens to people who touch my family." Queen's General Hospital, emergency entrance. The night security guard is doing his rounds when he sees the van, black, no plates, idling in the ambulance bay. He walks toward it, ready to tell whoever's inside they can't park there. Before he reaches the van, it pulls away, tires whispering on the wet pavement. Something is left behind. In the middle of the bay sits a metal chair with a man in it. As the guard gets closer, he sees the man's face. Eyes open, lips moving, no sound. Zip ties still bind his wrists and ankles. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" the guard asks, kneeling. The man's eyes focus with effort. His mouth works. "Help me," he whispers, voice cracked and thin. The guard tries to tear the zip ties off, but they're too tight. "I'll get help," he says. "Hold on." He runs inside and comes back with 2 nurses and an orderly. They wheel the chair inside. Under the bright ER lights, they see the note pinned to the man's shirt. "Vincent Esposito, C1 spinal fracture, quadriplegic. This is justice." At 5:30 a.m., the on-call neurosurgeon, Dr. Kenneth Walsh, examines Vinny. X-rays confirm what the note already told them: a complete fracture at C1. The spinal cord is severed. Clean. Dr. Walsh has seen injuries like this from car wrecks, diving accidents, falls from high places. He has never seen one this precise. "Can you fix it?" a nurse asks. Dr. Walsh studies the X-ray a long moment. "No," he says. "The spinal cord is severed. There is no surgery that can repair this. He's quadriplegic, permanent." He looks down at Vinny on the gurney. "How old is he?" he asks. 28, the nurse says, checking the chart. 28, Dr. Walsh repeats. "He could live another 60 years like this." At 6 a.m., they move Vinny to the ICU. They hook him up to monitors, IV lines, a catheter. Machines begin to measure the life he can no longer feel. At 6:15 a.m., the hospital calls the number listed in his wallet. Marco Esposito answers on the first ring. He hasn't slept. "Mr. Esposito, this is Queen's General Hospital," the voice says. "Your nephew Vincent has been admitted. You should come right away." March 16th, 7 a.m. Marco walks into the ICU and sees his nephew in the bed. Tubes everywhere, monitors blinking. Vinny's eyes follow him as he approaches. Marco sits without speaking and studies the boy he raised like his own. "Can you move?" Marco asks at last. Vinny's lips work. His voice is a whisper. "No." "Anything?" Marco asks. "No," Vinny says. Marco nods, like he expected nothing else. "The doctor says it's permanent." Vinny's eyes fill with tears. "I'm sorry, Uncle Marco," he whispers. "I'm so sorry." Marco stands, looks down at him, and his voice turns hard. "You cost us everything," he says. "The businesses are gone, our reputation is destroyed. Your father's restaurant is closed, your brother's trucks are ruined, and now we have to take care of you, feed you, bathe you, change you for the rest of your life." "Please," Vinny says. "You did this," Marco says. "You pushed that woman, you killed that baby, and now you're going to live with it, every day, every hour, for the next 60 years. He walks to the door and stops, his back to the bed. "I warned you," he says. "I told you not to make enemies. You didn't listen. Now you'll have 60 years to think about what you should have done differently." He leaves. Vinny stares at the ceiling. He tries to move his fingers. Nothing. His toes. Nothing. He tries to scream. It comes out as a whisper no one hears. March 17th. His mother Maria visits. She is 61 years old and looks older now, as if one phone call added 10 years to her shoulders. She sits in the chair, takes his hand. His hand is warm, but it doesn't squeeze hers. It doesn't move at all. "Vinny, my baby," she says. "What did they do to you?" "I'm sorry, Mama," he whispers. "Shh," she says. "Don't talk. Save your strength." "I can't move, Mama," he says. "I can't feel anything." She starts to cry. A nurse comes in to feed him through a tube down his throat, to empty the catheter, to turn him so he doesn't develop sores. Maria watches it all, the indignities of her son's new life. She can only watch because he can't help and she doesn't know how. After a while she leaves and breaks down in the hallway. March 25th. His father, Tony, visits. He doesn't sit. He stands at the end of the bed, hands on the rail. "The restaurant is closed," Tony says. "Health department found violations. It'll cost $50,000 to fix. We don't have $50,000 because we have to pay for you, your medical bills, your care, your wheelchair, your nursing home, everything." "Papa, Vinny begins. "You destroyed this family," Tony says. 40 years building this business, 40 years, and you destroyed it in one afternoon because you couldn't keep your hands to yourself." He leaves without saying goodbye. On March 25th, they discharge Vinny from the hospital, not because he's better, but because there's nothing more they can do. He can't go home. His parents' apartment has stairs and no elevator. They transfer him to a Medicaid nursing facility in Queens. Old building, peeling paint, 40 patients, 2 nurses on duty at a time. His room is shared, 3 other patients, all elderly, all moving slowly toward the end of their lives. Vinny is 28. The nurses come every 4 hours to feed him, change him, turn him. Between visits, he stares at the ceiling. He can't change the channel on the television mounted on the wall. He can't press the call button if he needs help. He can't do anything. He lies there and waits. 3 years later, Vinny is 31 years old. He hasn't moved anything below his neck in 3 years. A pressure sore has opened on his lower back. It's infected. The smell hangs in the air no matter how much the nurses clean. He has pneumonia again, his 4th time. When you can't move, fluid gathers in your lungs. You can't cough it out, it just sits and festers. His father stopped visiting 2 years ago. His mother still comes on Sundays, but not for long. 10 minutes, 15. She holds his hand, cries, and leaves. Uncle Marco paid for the nursing home for the first year, then said the family couldn't afford it anymore. Now the state pays $47 a day for his care. 2 nurses, 40 patients. You do the math. Vinny waits. 8 years later, Vinny is 36. The first nursing home closed after budget cuts. This new facility is worse. 6 beds to a room, 1 bathroom, 1 small window. The man in the bed next to Vinny died last week. The bed is still empty, but the smell lingers. His father died a year ago of a heart attack. The restaurant had been closed for 5 years. Tony never recovered from losing it. His mother is 70 now and can barely walk. She doesn't visit. She can't afford the bus fare and doesn't have the strength. His brother moved to Florida in 1957 and stopped calling. Marco is in federal prison on racketeering charges, 20-year sentence. Vinny is alone. Every day a nurse he doesn't know feeds him, turns him, cleans him. Every night he stares at the ceiling and wishes he had died on March 14th, 1952. But he didn't. He's still here. 23 years later. Vinny is 51. He hasn't spoken in 6 years. His vocal cords still work. He simply has nothing left he wants to say. His mother died in 1972, heart failure at 83. Nobody came to her funeral except a priest and 2 neighbors. No one told Vinny until 3 weeks later when a social worker dropped the news between form questions. "Oh, and I see your mother passed. My condolences," she said, like she was noting a change of address. He's in his 4th nursing facility now, in the Bronx, state-run, Medicaid only. The staff turns over constantly, low pay, hard work. No one stays long enough to form attachments. No one uses his name. To them, he's the quad in room 7. The quad who has no visitors. The quad who's been there longer than anyone can remember. The quad who will be there until he dies. 38 years later. Vinny is 66. He's been paralyzed longer than he was ever able-bodied. He's lived in nursing homes longer than he lived in his parents' apartment. He's forgotten what it feels like to move his fingers or scratch an itch. Sometimes he dreams he's running, feet pounding the pavement, lungs burning in a good way. In the dream, he's young and whole. He always wakes the same way, staring at ceiling tiles, unable to move a muscle. A new social worker comes in, young and eager, carrying a clipboard like a shield. She flips through his file, eyes widening. "Says here you've been in the system since 1952, she says. "That's 38 years. Vinny doesn't respond. "It also says your injury was non-accidental," she continues. "That's unusual. Most spinal injuries are from accidents, crashes, falls." She looks at him. "Do you want to talk about what happened?" His mouth moves. He hasn't spoken in 15 years. The sound that emerges is a dry whisper. "I pushed a pregnant woman downstairs," he says. "She lost her baby. Her husband did this to me." The social worker writes something in her notes. "Well, I'm sorry that happened to you," she says. Vinny almost laughs, but laughter requires more muscles than he owns now. She's sorry it happened to him, not sorry for what he did, sorry for what he's lived through. She leaves. Vinny stares at the ceiling, 43 years later. Vinny is 67. It's March, early morning, still dark outside. A nurse doing 6 a.m. rounds checks bed 1, fine. Bed 2, fine. Bed 3, Vinny. She takes his wrist, no pulse. She tries his neck, nothing. She calls the doctor. He pronounces Vincent Esposito dead at 6:17 a.m., March 14, 1995, exactly 43 years after he pushed Mayme Johnson down 4 concrete steps. Cause of death: respiratory failure from pneumonia, complications of quadriplegia. There is no next of kin listed. No one comes. No funeral is arranged. The state buries him in a potter's field on Hart Island. No marker, no headstone, just a number in a ledger, 6,891. That's what's left of Vincent Esposito, a name on a file and a plot number no one visits. Mayme Johnson, 2007. She is 86 years old, sitting in the same Harlem apartment on 141st Street she has lived in since 1949. A young journalist sits across from her, tape recorder on the coffee table, notebook open. She's writing a book about Harlem history, about Bumpy, about what it meant to love a man like that and survive. They talk about Bumpy's early days, his wars with Dutch Schultz, his time in prison, his death in 1968 over a plate of fried chicken at Wells' restaurant. Then the journalist hesitates and asks the question that's been sitting in her notes in darker ink. "Is it true," she asks softly, "about the Italian mobster, the one who pushed you?" Mayme is quiet for a long time. "Yes," she says finally. "What happened to him?" the journalist asks. "He lived," Mayme says. The journalist blinks. "But the stories say he lived for 43 years, paralyzed in nursing homes, alone, that he outlived his parents, his brother, everyone, that he lived to be 67. That's worse than death." "That was the point," Mayme says. "Did you ever regret it?" the journalist asks, "asking Bumpy not to kill him?" Mayme thinks about this. Her eyes drift to the window, to the streets she's walked for 6 decades. "No," she says. "Death would have been mercy. He didn't deserve mercy. He deserved to live with what he did. And he did, every day, every hour, for 43 years. The journalist doesn't know what to say. "Did you ever think about him?" she asks at last. "Every day for 43 years, Mayme says. The journalist's pen stops moving. "People think revenge is about violence," Mayme continues, "about blood. But the truest revenge is time, making someone live with their mistakes, making them feel it every day. That's what we gave him. Time." "Do you think he suffered enough?" the journalist asks. Mayme looks out at Harlem again. "No amount of suffering brings back my son, William Marcus," she says. "He never took a breath, never had a chance. But yes, Vinnie suffered. That's something." Woodlawn Cemetery, Section 15, Plot 247. 3 headstones stand together. The first, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, 1905 to 1968. Underneath, carved in stone, Harlem's protector. The second, Mayme Johnson, 1921 to 2009. She survived, she thrived, she protected. The third is smaller, nestled between them like a hand held by 2 others. William Marcus Johnson, born March 14, 1952, died March 14, 1952. Inscription, "Forever loved, never forgotten." Every year on March 14th, someone leaves fresh flowers on William Marcus's grave. No one knows who. The groundskeepers don't see them placed, but they're always there. For 70 years the flowers come. March 14th, 1952. 4 concrete steps, 1 push, 1 baby dead. 43 years of suffering. That's the story. Not just a story about revenge, a story about justice. Not the kind that ends with a bullet in a dark alley and a headline in the morning paper, but the kind that stretches on for decades. The kind that makes a man wish for death every single day and never grants it. Vincent Esposito pushed a pregnant woman. He killed a baby, and he paid. Not with his life, but with every day he lived afterward. 6,891 days. That's how long he lay in one bed after another. That's how long Mayme Johnson made sure he remembered. 4 concrete steps. That's all it took to change everything. The blood on those steps dried decades ago. The stain washed away. The concrete was patched, re-poured, walked over by people who never knew. But the consequences never dried. They lived in hospital corridors, in nursing home rooms, in a man's regret and a woman's memory. If this story moves you, remember this. Justice isn't always swift, but when it finally arrives, it can be absolute.